We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Yay! Good day, everybody. It's the 2nd of November 2016. Somehow it turned to 6 p.m. in the Netherlands, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There used to be a difference of 6 hours. I don't know what happened, but, you know, it's like, they think they can, like, influence the rising sun or something with this time-changing nonsense. Good day, everybody. This is the Solvinur Event. I am your host, Wouter, coming to you from Holland. There's a website you can go to. It's called ucy.tv. There is also a chat link you can go to. I want to welcome everybody on this Wednesday as opposed to Saturdays. Dale, Grammy Mary, I am Lone Frog, Joe, Jules, Road, Surely You Jest, me, Victory Through Vegetables, welcome, and Vincent, and two Anons. Awesome. See, I knew I forgot something. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I should do this. I should have prepared this, but... where is it? There it is. Double click that, and so I can copy paste. Copy this. There we go. En kan al weg. Open it up. Upanishads number 4, this should be, I guess. If you're listening, Jules, we'll just continue that Upanishad title for a while. And then open here, go to Twitter. Twittery twit. Right, new. Paste that there. See, it says nothing about Saturday or something. So 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296 is the number, which I just also tweeted that we're live. Yeah. Yes, we are. This is not a podcast. Yes. So strange things can happen. Before we get into Upanishads, you find me now at Wednesdays. This is because I'm going through a test period of 3 months to see whether a new job is the place for me to be. And so we've gone through 2 weeks of those now. And the job requires me to be available at Saturdays. So it's I work at a store at the cashier, what do you call that? And so I have to work sometimes. So you know, it's I had to shift the radio, and so it can also be that I just came home from work and I have to do radio, and I really don't like that. and especially not doing 2 hours. So we're also back, for now anyways, to 1 hour. Because I think 2 hours is a bit too much for me if I just, got home from work. So, that's the reason why we are on Wednesdays. Let's see, write my cigarette here. So, the Upanishads being the topic is, you can take this anywhere, basically. But, because the Vedas, they cover pretty much every topic you can think of. But, so you can take it anywhere. But there's this idea that it has to do with the human experience, let's just call it that, to be as broad as possible, so to speak. And in the Vedas there is also a lot of talk about this soma, which is suspected to be some kind of brew. And I don't know about how widespread its usage was, but apparently they can't stop talking about it in the Vedas. So it must have been like this big, huge thing, so to speak. And it seems that it's a drug of some sort, maybe like mushrooms, something like that. And it's maybe some kind of reflection or something in the idea that you get from people that use drugs in the 50s and 60s and so on, that they claim to have had some kind of quote-unquote spiritual experience, or quote-unquote the veil was lifted, or now I saw reality. Not explanations, remarks like that, claims like that, right? They seem to be the ones that are using the drugs seem to be pointing at what mystics in the religious fields would be talking about. But the complaint is then that with the mystics it's on such a shallow level. It's just that there's white lights and stuff like that. So, yeah, you gotta wonder how it was. Terence McKenna had these theories about it with people using mushrooms. And as far as I know, he's not one that thinks advanced societies with highly technological capabilities were around before 12,000 years ago. With discoveries like Göbekli Tepe and things like that, you need to take that into question. However, his claims that we as humans came from Africa, the trees there, and as Africa dried up, it became more steppe-like, and the humanoid animals that were there were forced by environmental changes to move out of the habitat. And because they moved out of the habitat, they were also forced to change the diet. And for many species of animals, a changing of diet is such a big step that they won't make it. They will die out. For primates, this was different. They were able to change their diet. We started eating meat, for instance. And also, according to his theory, the different kind of mushrooms that were available. Now, I wouldn't dismiss that idea offhand. If you are forced out of your environment and forced to change your diet, you're going to start testing things. Wrote, you passed the test. It's in the chat. Yeah. And so he has the idea that religion and art, like in the cave arts in Spain and France, were tied to that. And there's another person, I don't remember his name, but I think he was mentioned by Graham Hancock, who said that there was this person who wrote a book about these cave paintings, these ancient ones, and that they definitely seem to have been under the influence of some kind of chemical that has a boundary dissolving capability, like mushrooms. Not necessarily has to be mushrooms. There's other stuff out there like ayahuasca, for instance. You know, there's all kinds of things apparently in nature that one can eat and it changes your consciousness. There's another term that, you know, it's very important to talk about when you talk about Upanishads. Consciousness. That whole concept is what they scientists call the hard problem, right? But for us, it should be widely discussed. You know, this concept of consciousness should be widely discussed. And so Terence goes on to explain that at different dosages, these mushrooms would have given a evolutionary advantage to these humanoids, let's just call it that, or humans. I suppose he's meaning real humans like you and I. He's mentioning 50,000 years ago at this point when this happened, and as we are already anatomically walking around for 200,000 years like this, that claim is within limits. The thing is that, and he also talks about this, that when we had the first stone tools, we were like, yay, this is it, you know, and we stuck with it for millions of years, according to the official story. And so, you know, it's the argument that catastrophes like meteorites hitting, floods and stuff like that can wipe out entire civilizations without leaving a trace is reasonable, in my opinion. So that's not an argument one could use to say, well, they were so stupid in the past that they stuck with these stone tools for millions of years, right? And then the so-called, this is the official story, right? And Terence also, you know, gives his doubts about this now and then with his official stories. You can tell by the tone of voice and the manner of speaking about it. On the other hand, you know, he doesn't mind using it in his arguments, all right? So that's okay as long as you're, as he is, clear about it. You know, you don't try to hide it or something. Right? There's other things he doesn't try to hide, and I find contradictions there when he's talking about the concept of reality. You should listen to his going-ons about illusions. He's got whole categories of them, and of course, the whole world is full of illusions. But and then saying that the truth or reality is too hard to grasp, you wouldn't be able to get there. And okay, you know, it's of course quite arrogant to say I know the truth, right? It is. You should be very careful with that. But you know, on other times when he's talking about his hallucinogenic experiences, he says they are real. You know, this is reality. You know. So I'm like, okay, you know, what kind of view of reality is going on here? So anyway, these mushroom-eating humans were, what do you call it, evolutionary ahead because it leads to sex and it leads to creativity, right? So you have a much more human-like, I would say, way of living with it. And why I brought up these stone tools and that we were stuck with them for millions of years, and then they found another new kind of tool, like cutting at two edges or something, I don't know. And that was a revolution for another millions of years. You know, are we like to suppose that our mind was so dull that we didn't get past stone tools for millions of years? It's kind of strange. I think he also mentions that in the evolutionary biology, the humans are the ones that are most astonishing and hard to explain because of our rapid emergence on the scene. The brain capacity doubled in size over 2 million years, and that's the biggest change in any primate in the fossil history. These are Terence's words, by the way. Giraremi Mary says, I think he was referring to shamanism. Yeah, he does refer to that a lot. And that's an idea indeed. You know, it may tie to primates always having a leader at the top who dominates. That's just with all primates, it's just like that. It's a top down, right? There's one who tells the others what to do. And we are also primates, and we also had our leaders. And I'm thinking about the hunter-gatherer time now, right? 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. No? Not saying that we didn't know anything about planting, because I have such a hard time assuming that these people were stupid, right? If they, for instance, had food, and they would throw away the food, and it was, for instance, something that had seeds in it, and later they find, when they come around that place again, that, hey, where I threw my food, now a plant grows, right? You know, I'm not so sure that these people didn't notice, right? So I'm not saying that these people, I fail to see why these people would be stupid, as is presented by science, right? Hold on, guys, my cigarette's gone out. This lighter's working. And so, this mushroom changes your consciousness enormously. and I think it's even you can see traces of it in the Eleusinian mysteries from Greece, in the Soma from the Vedas, in the use of ayahuasca in this, I think it's South America, right? These tribes there for, that goes on for thousands of years. So it seems like it's a part of being human. We have a special bond with plants, right? If the plants weren't there, we would be dead, because we rely on plants for our food. Were it not to just eat the plants as they grow, right? Or to feed it to cattle and eat the meat, right? We need plants. Without plants, we're dead. And so that's also one thing I would flag as a clue. And then I mean a clue as to answering the question, what the frack is going on here? I think if you're a human being, you should be asking yourself that question every day. What the frack is going on here? Meaning that, science is not some kind of holy thing to be revered as the purveyor of truth, or that they know everything about reality. I think that's that's very arrogant, to be honest with you. In the past, what then would be called, and we're making air quotes now, right? Science entailed much more than the purely materialistic, logical positivist view that we have nowadays. Right? Listen to William Roberts go on about logical positivism and how it destroyed our society. Well, how it shaped our society. It destroyed the human, any humanness that was left after Queen Elizabeth and John Dee took over the world. And then later Descartes nailed another in the coffin. And things so because in those days, in the older days, they were very much interested in topics like consciousness. Today in science, it's just some kind of byproduct or something, not to be taken notice of. I think that's insane. Consciousness is one of the most intriguing subjects out there. Yeah, that would be Vincent. Damn it, I'm so bad with names, right? What's his name? August Comte. Dan moet ik het wel intypen. That was Dutch, by the way. August Comte. I don't know how it's pronounced exactly. It's Auguste Comte, C-O-M-T-E. I think it was a French philosopher, influenced by, I don't know who, I don't remember who, but he was the founder for what is now known as logical positivism, which we should get into, but we're not going to do that now. This is It's a very, very important. It has to do with how we came to be where we are now, actually. I remember him tying the whole Agenda 21 to this philosophy, right? But consciousness is so elusive and so not dense, but the other way around. Yeah. Let's see what this says, Vince, in the chat. A form of positivism developed by members of the Vienna Circle that considers the only meaningful philosophical problems are those that can be solved by logical analysis. Yeah. Isidore Auguste Marie François Xavier Comte, better known as Auguste Comte, was a French philosopher. He was the founder of the discipline of sociology and the doctrine of positivism. Yeah, discipline of sociology. What does that scream out to you? To me, this says social engineering. I don't know what it says to you guys, but... And this positivism has nothing to do with being positive or negative about things, right? And the previous one, the only meaningful philosophical problems are those that can be solved by logical analysis. I think that's narrowing yourself so much. And that's why you get this materialistic idea, I think, right? So you guys, you can call in. I don't know why you don't. 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296. You've heard 27 minutes of me rambling on without any interruption of any ads. So go to ucy.tv, and at the bottom you will find a tiny little button that says donate, and see what you can do if you have any couple of dollars left. Go there, because it's ad free, you know. So 718-717-8296. This consciousness, I mentioned last time I was talking about the topic for today, Upanishads. I said that as far as I can see, and I think I gave more possibilities, but as far as I can see, consciousness comes from yourself. And I have to backtrack a little on that. I think that there's maybe a third or fourth or fifth possibility. It has to do with Rupert Sheldrake's idea of morphogenetic fields. And, there's magnetic fields, electromagnetic fields. There's all kinds of fields. In particle physics, they also talk about fields. And I'm thinking like, okay, in the old Vedas, they also talk about fields and things like that. Welcome, caller. You're on the air. Hi. No. I did add to... Hi, there. I was going to say. I just had to wait. It took a long time before it added you. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, Walter. How you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Great. Welcome to your new day and time.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll miss you on Saturday, certainly, but I think I think this spot will work well for many of the listeners.
Cool.
Yeah. So, all this ideology on how we should be thinking and all this business, a lot of people set their parameters, they define terms, and have arbitrary truth and would deny discussion. I find that a little bit, how can anybody claim to be whatever they want to call themselves, enlightened or a truther or whatever, and dictate the parameters for discussion.
Yeah, indeed. We should be able to talk about anything, right? Question the validity of even scientists who claim that there are constants in the universe, and these are laws, and the speed of light is this, and we will not differ this for 1 millimeter, while the measurements clearly show that, this average that they've taken is never actually measured. Right? You're not allowed to question these kinds of things, and we need to be able to break through that, yes.
Absolutely. Many of us here that, join in the discussion and the listeners here, well, I think for the most part, none of us would probably have a consensus of exactly what everything is. And I find it, it lends me hope at least that at least we have a chance when we can find people that are willing to engage and hold opposing positions or ideologies and still be able to be friends and get along and have a discussion and not deride another even when they're an obvious idiot, and sometimes that happens even for myself. I'm like, what did I just say? It didn't make any sense. But this is a quest we're on, is to learn.
But also remember, it is not written. This is also from Terence, and I think he's kind of right. It's not written in stone that a bunch of primates should be able to grasp what reality is. He's got a point there. Yeah.
I watched. I dropped in at some friends last night, and they had that new Tarzan movie out. Pretty good, and it gives a lot. Well, we're having some discussion, and so I'm like, these guys, why are they killing these apes? The guy says, well, they live there, and supposing that conflict is the way of life, but we see now where people live up there where the mountain gorillas are, and they interact. The scientists there with the gorillas. So I think that's proves well that in the sense that we can, coexist and have differing opinions. But when whether it be religious, well, I think it's both religious, the outright clergy, and the scientists are little more than the clergy for the science of faith. But when one is questions the narrative, and mainstream looks at them as fringe or as an idiot, or all kinds of names you can hang on that.
We're welcoming people in the chat room from reallibertymedia.com. Check it out. There's a nice website there. UCY is listed in channel 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Channel 6.
Oh, channel 6. Yeah, there's a nice bunch of people there. Hal Anthony can be heard there. So.
Yes, of course, simulcast here at UCY at the same time.
Yeah. Check it
Grimner.
out.
Like Grimner made it.
All right, Vince. Anything else?
No.
All right.
I just like to say, can't we all get along? Can I give a plug for myself?
Sure.
All right. So this is episode 10 coming up of Feedback, and this will be Friday at noon Central. And it's War of the Words, and I'm going to be discussing white privilege and the Oregon and No Dapple and all that, and comparing the state of war that we are as a society against one another and continuing to fall in. So a kind of a little tagline with that is, I'd like to say first, I've always thought it important to look at it as many opposing views as one can to be balanced. And so the discussion is the arbitrator of truth, and to be offended by any word is to be mentally feeble. So thanks, Walter, and
All right.
really enjoy your broadcast. You've been a really great teacher for me, so thanks, brother.
Thanks a lot, Vince, for the call. Take care, buddy.
Right on. Bye-bye.
Hi. All right. There we are. We left off at consciousness and its origin, and I said in the past that the most likely thing I can come up with is that you are the cause, the source of consciousness. I kind of thought that was logical because the consciousness is kind of limited to your body for the most of the time. However, this idea of fields is also attractive. If I remember correct from reading the Vedas in the past, they mentioned this thing called Brahma-jyoti, which is also explained as some kind of field of light in which everything floats. And so, it's kind of hard to prove the concept of you anyway, when one claims that, well, you are the source of your consciousness. It's kind of hard to pin you, right? The self, so to speak. It's very elusive. It's very non-dense. I still can't remember the opposite of that word. Subtle, that's the word. It's so subtle that it's hard to grasp. These are the best words that one could use to explain this situation. Anyway, the subtleness makes it hard to grasp. What does grasp mean? It means you stretch out your hands and you try to grab. Listen to the etymological tie here. You try to grab a concept. Grasp a concept. You try to grab hold of something. In Dutch we say it also. We say grijp, which implies that you understand, but also that you use your hands to get a hold of something. You see? And you can do that in your mind also. You can get a hold of things, right? And so this field could also be a field of consciousness. That consciousness is everywhere, as opposed to what the materialists will say, that matter is dead, right? It's not alive, it's dead. Life and consciousness are two things very tightly knit together, at least as far as they go as concepts in your mind, right? So that's about consciousness. We got a little bit. There's much more to say, but we were supposed to get into some of the more of the Upanishads here. We were at the 5th Kanda when we left off last time. We'll see what we can glance from there. 1 says, the upward rays of the sun are the honey cells above. The secret doctrines are the bees. Brahman, the Om, is the flower. The water is the nectar. Those secret doctrines as bees, brooded over Brahman, and from it, thus brooded on, sprang as its essence, fame, glory of countenance, brightness, vigor, strength, and health. That flowed forth and went towards the sun, and that forms what seems to stir in the center of the sun. Okay. I'm not sure what they are getting at here with that forms what seems to stir in the center of the sun. These things like brightness, vigor, strength, and health are what you get from the sun. Are they now assuming that is somehow in the center of the sun? All of these, well, let's call them properties, right? Brightness, fame, vigor, strength, and health. It's quite healthy to sit in the sun, you know. Somebody calling me. I'm making live radio right now. Can you call me back after 7, after 6? Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Health is given by the sun. It's good to sit in the sun, as opposed to what they try to tell you in the ads, selling you anti-block, block 30 or whatever it is. You shouldn't use that. You should get out in the sun in February, March, if you can. I don't know what kind of position you are on Earth, but to get used to the sun in the summer as when it's at its hottest, you need to get into the sun in March or whenever it's possible for you if you don't live too far north, right? Let your skin get used to the sun a little for the first couple of times. You know, don't go into the sun and fracking burn yourself. You know, don't be stupid. But sun is healthy. Face the sun also. All right. 4 for the last one of the 5th kanta. These, the different colors in the sun, are the essences of the essences. For the Vedas are essences, the best things in the world. And of them, after they have assumed the form of sacrifice, these, the colors rising to the sun, are again the essences. They are the nectar of the nectar. For the Vedas are immortal, it says here, and of them, these are the nectars. They claim that the Vedas are immortal. It has to do with a kind of fairy tale-ish idea that these people have. Thanks, Otto. Welcome, buddy. Is that the Vedas have always existed and that they've only been put to paper because we were too stupid to remember them. And I asked these people, how far back does this go? Millions of years. It's always been there, right? Okay. That's the time when you say, like, okay, there's no evidence to support this claim at all. So that's kind of, you have to, like, go over that. 6th kanda. On the first of these nectars, the red light, which represents fame, glory of countenance, vigor, strength, and health, the Vasus live, with Agni at their head. Agni is the fire god, which also reminds you of the sun, right? True, the Devas did not eat or drink, but they enjoy by seeing the nectar. This not eating or not drinking. It's what do they call them nowadays? I think breatharians are the ones closest to to this idea, and again somebody phoning me. It's ridiculous, right? Ik zit in de uitzending. Ik bel je zo wel even terug, ja?
Oké, doei.
Wow. Now I'm having my thoughts. Where were they? The devas not drinking or eating. What are we supposed to think here? That they are such luminous beings like angels or something? You know, I don't know. 2. They enter into that red color and they rise from that color. The footnote says, this is differently explained by the commentator. He takes it to mean that when the Vasus have gone to the sun and see that there is no opportunity for enjoying that color, they rest. But when they see that there is an opportunity for enjoying it, they exert themselves for it. I think the color is here taken for the color of the morning, which the Vasus enter, and from which they go forth again. Alright, I think that's a good footnote. 3. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Vasus. With Agni at their head, he sees the nectar and rejoices, and he too, having entered that color, rises again from that color. Let's talk about the sun, right? So long as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, so long does he follow the sovereign supremacy of the Vasus. Next. On the second of these nectars, the Rudras live, with Indra at their head. True, the Devas do not eat or drink, but they enjoy by seeing the nectar. It's another one, the same idea as previous. 2. They enter into that white color, and they rise from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Rudras, with Indra at their head. He sees the nectar and rejoices, and he, having entered that color, rises again from that color. Yeah. The first time I read this kind of stuff and they were talking about Rudras and other beings, they come across to you as giants in the sense that they are bigger than the sun, you know. That's the idea that you get from reading that kind of stuff. It's because it's personalized, and they tie so many properties to them. 4. So long as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, twice as long does it rise in the south and set in the north. And so long does he follow the sovereign supremacy of the Rudras. Twice as long does it rise in the south and set in the north. I don't know what they mean with this twice as long, but I suppose you could divide the year in two. There's a point when it starts rising in the north. It appears more high in the sky, so to speak. And then there's a time, like we are in now, when the sun doesn't seem to come as high as it did, and so you would say it's south, right? Not sure if they mean this by it, though. The most astonishing fact about these sun thingies, these astronomical thingies, is the numbers that they use, 432 and 216, and how that somehow is tied to the use of a mile. The origin of the mile is supposed to be 1,000 Roman paces, but that is apparently that's debatable. They had different measurements in India. They use yona, And I'm not sure how it relates to a mile, but the numbers are too coincidental. Let's put it that way. To be meaningless. When we're talking about a 2,160 year period for a sign in the sky and a 2,160 mile radius, or that's the diameter, of the moon, and indeed as our LT host says, 432, which is 216, the two numbers from just now, times 2. The correct frequency of a musical note, A, right? You go beyond that, you get 864, and you add 3 zeros. Now we have a diameter of the sun. So, these numbers, and these are just a few examples. There are many more, even on Earth itself, right? Are too coincidental to be dismissed. All right. So next 8. Up. Let me get my drink, guys. I'm gonna roll a new ciggy. Eighth skanda. On the third of these nectars, the Adityas live, with Varuna at their head. All right, Varuna is a very special bird. It's the what I would call a mount. Its driver is God himself, but of course Garuna himself is also God. Varuna. If you type that in the Google, press images, you will see. You will see this bird. And again, true, the Devas do not eat or drink, but they enjoy by seeing the nectar. They enter into that dark color and they rise from it. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Adityas, with Varuna at their head. He sees the nectar and rejoices, and he, having entered that color, rises again from that color. So long as the sun rises in the south and sets in the north, twice as long does it rise in the west and set in the east, and so long does he follow the sovereign supremacy of the Adityas. Yeah, they're talking about astronomy here, guys. This has nothing to do with gods or anything. You understand? Ninth. One of the fourth of these nectars, the Maruts live, with Soma at their head. True, the Devas do not eat or drink, but they enjoy by seeing the nectar. Now, Soma here is not a drug, apparently, but some kind of leading figure like Indra, Shiva. 2. They enter in that very dark color, and they rise from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Maruts, with Soma at their head. He sees the nectar and rejoices, and he, having entered that color, rises again from that color. So long as the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, what the heck is that? Twice as long does it rise in the north and set in the south, and so long does he follow the sovereign supremacy of the Maruts. Yeah. Sovereign supremacy is a word that keeps coming back, right? Needs to be kicked down from the pedestal, of course. 10th skanda. One of the fifth of these nectars the Satyas lived. On the fifth of these nectars the Satyas lived, with Brahman at their head. True, the Devas do not drink or eat, but they enjoy by seeing the nectar. Endless repeating, right? They enter into that color and they rise from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Satyas, with Brahman at their head. He sees the nectar and rejoices, and he, having entered that color, rises again from that color. So long as the sun rises in the north and sets in the south, twice as long does it rise above and set below, and so long does he follow the sovereign power of the Satyas. One footnote here, which may be more interesting. The meaning of the 5 khandas from 6 to 10 is clear, insofar as they are intended to show that he who knows or meditates on the sacrifices as described before enjoys his rewards in different worlds with the Vasus, Rudras, etc. For certain periods of time, till at least he reaches the true Brahman. Of these periods, each succeeding one is supposed to be double the length of the preceding one. Alright, so this reminds me, I'm breaking this footnote here, this reminds me of their idea of yoga, karma yoga. Karma yoga is what they call it. Karma means action. And you can, according to their belief, act today to get a better birth next time. But every time you do this, you get born into a higher planet, which means every time you ascend to a higher planet, you live longer, right? It is said that at the planet where Brahman lives, who was mentioned here, your life, when born, lasts 100,000 years. After that, you're not supposed to be born again, because you've quote-unquote reached enlightenment. This is the kind of sectarian thought that's behind this. Continuing with the footnote, this is expressed by imagining a migration of the sun from east to south, west, north, and zenith. Each change of the sun marks a new world. In the duration of each successive world is computed as a double the duration of the preceding world. Similar ideas have been more fully developed in Puranas, and the commentator is at great pains to remove apparent contradictions between the Pauranic and the Vedic accounts. Following as Anandagnanagiri remarks. And then he points us to some scripture, page and all. Blah, blah. Lots of people in the chat. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bacon, Chemtrailer, Dell, Grammy Mary, Grimner, Grump, Lone Frog, Joe Friday, Jules, Otto. Hey, Mike, how you doing? RLT host. Surely you jest me, Vincent, and Tuanons. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I'll be back next week. I will continue, or at least endeavor to continue, to talk about the unspeakable things like consciousness, things like that. I might attack the idea of karma as it is being presented in the Western world, things like that. Not going to go into any false flag operations or social engineering or all of that. We are past that time, right? We should, I think, give some more attention